Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Hello and welcome to the Skeptic Zone, episode number 516 for the 9th of September 2018. Richard Saunders here with you from Sydney, Australia. And sometimes it would be good to have something like Noah's Ark because just the other day, Friday evening here in Sydney, in this part of Sydney, the inner west as it's called, we had a huge storm cell come over. Thunderbolts and lightning very, very frightening me and frightening the cats, actually. They were both hiding under a table. A bolt of lightning, hit just near Skeptic Zone headquarters. Very close. And there was flooding and hail. But everything seems to be okay now. Coming up on this week's show, we're going to interview Celestia Ward, a wonderful artist. She creates wonderful caricatures of people and other artistic works. And she's also one of the crew from Squaring the Strange podcast. The Squaring the Strange podcast with Ben and Pascual. They do an excellent skeptical podcast. Find out more with our interview with Celestia Ward. Following that, it's Dr Paulie with a Random RANT. This week, Dr Paulie interviews Hana Svobodová from the Czech Republic about her efforts to save turtles in Indonesia and around the world, of course. Some interesting facts, I bet you didn't know, about sea turtles coming up. Then we have an open letter to the RSL Association here in Australia. This is the Returned and Services League. This is the group of people who look after the needs of veterans, war veterans and things like that, from all the services. And there's a series of clubs, many clubs dotted around the country. There's one just down the road here, in fact, where they're a community club now, really. They have entertainment and they have restaurants and lots of poker machines, slot machines, one-arm bandits. But getting back to the entertainment, some of the entertainment they have are the so-called psychics who go around pretending or thinking they talk to the dead. And the Australian skeptics have taken the opinion that this is in appalling taste to have a show exploiting the memory of the dead in a building dedicated to the memory of the dead, to the fallen servicemen and women. So I'll read that open letter a bit later on in the show. After that, it's reporter Kevin Davies from the ACT, from Canberra, the nation's capital, chatting to a couple of military men and their opinion or their take on Star Wars when it comes to military tactics. Can Star Wars be used to be shown to teach military tactics? An unusual interview indeed, coming up later on. Then we have another interview in our series of interviews with speakers who will be appearing at the upcoming Skepticon, the Skeptics Convention here in Sydney on the 13th and 14th of October. This week I chat to Lee Murray, who is a PhD candidate at Monash University in Victoria. And she is a social linguist. She studies language, how language is formed, why we say the things we say, and her particular interest is Australian linguistics. And if all that wasn't enough to round off the show, I chat to the challenge coordinator and investigator from Australian Skeptics, Bryce, about the Higgs boson, because he knows a lot about the Higgs boson and the Large Hadron Collider. I mean, he really knows a lot. He probably knows where all the restaurants are around that place. And we haven't heard about the Higgs for a little while. Anyway, Ian will bring us more or less up to date. Stay tuned at the end of the episode for more announcements from me, but now it's time for me to run downstairs and make sure my fluids are up. I might have a little chocolate milkshake or something like that, because earlier today I donated some blood. Probably an armful, I'm not sure. And that story about the blood donation, which was an initiative by the Australian Skeptics, will be coming up, I think, next week. But as I record this, I'm just recovering. Yeah, there's not much really to recover from. So I'm going to run downstairs, make sure my fluids are up, maybe have a bit of chocolate cake and a biscuit, a Kit Kat. I should have some candy, some lollies too, and a pancake. Maybe a packet of chips. And while I do all that quickly, I hope you enjoy the Skeptic Zone. And joining me now from beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada, it's none other than Celestia Ward from Squaring the Strange. Hello, Celestia.
Hi, Richard. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Yes, we don't talk to each other often enough. I thought I'd give you a call, but contact you, because I'm so impressed now by the way Squaring the Strange is going. What episode are you up to now?
Oh, gosh, I just finished editing episode 73. I'm very pleased with all the stuff we've been able to put out, and Ben and Pascual have been fun to work with. We do have a little change I can announce on your show if you'd like.
Please do. A scoop.
Well, unfortunately, the scoop is we are going to, for the time being, be moving to a bi-weekly schedule so that you'll get a new episode once every 2 weeks, but that means we'll be able to spend a bit more time crafting each topic and diving a little deeper into each subject.
It sounds very sensible to me. One day the Skeptic Zone might do that. Who knows?
Oh, gosh, yes. Your staying power amazes me, Richard.
It amazes me, I can tell you.
Weekly episodes for, what are you on now, 500 and what?
By the time this little interview goes out, I think it'll be 516, episode 516. But I can tell you, as we're recording this now, right, you and I, DragonCon is in full swing in Atlanta, Georgia, and it was DragonCon 10 years ago I recorded my first segment for the Skeptic Zone.
Oh, wow. So that was the last time you had a life.
I think so.
Okay. I am actually very sad to not be at DragonCon this year, but one cannot do everything one wishes to do. But I'm sure Dr. Angela Matke and Derek Colanduno are doing a great job on the Skep track down there. Hi, guys.
Oh, they certainly are. And in fact, I was going to interview them today, but I think they're having too much fun.
Probably.
But let's get back to Squaring the Strange, because, again, it's a pleasure to listen to. I find it endlessly fascinating. It must be great to work with people like Ben and Pascual. What to you, because your involvement over the past months has been greater and greater, what have you learned? What have you discovered?
Well, besides the fact that it takes a tremendous amount of work and hours to put together a podcast that comes out once a week, just that, conversations are fun. I really got into listening to skeptical podcasts years ago, and I found the ones that I gravitated towards were the ones that had a conversation going, where you have people who really know what they're talking about, and then perhaps one or two people who don't, and they can talk about stuff. And so even if it's a topic I don't know much about, I can at least ask questions, and Ben usually has a treasure trove of research to back up what he brings. So it's fun to do the deep dives on topics that might not be covered by other skeptical podcasts that just stick to the daily news.
And tell me just the logistics of it. I know sometimes you're in the studio, you go to Albuquerque, New Mexico, and you're with Ben and Pascual, but sometimes you're really based in Las Vegas, aren't you?
I am, yeah. I actually have not been there. I've not been down there too many times, but the times I have gone, we've just been able to sit in the studio and record 4 or 5 segments that we can use later on. That's the beauty of having some evergreen topics. There's some things we can look into that sometimes have a historical bent to them. Like we've covered Benjamin Franklin, we've covered We've covered some old investigations that Ben has done and what he learned about them. And so it doesn't necessarily need to be a topic that is informed with up-to-the-minute data. So we can kind of jump around and do topics that interest us that still teach a good skeptical lesson if you look at them. And they're still going to be interesting next year or 2 years from now.
That's a very good point. So I'm glad you get the opportunity to go there and do that sometimes. But most of the time, I'm just very curious, just from a technical point of view. You sit there in Las Vegas and you hook up with the guys?
Well, yes, much like you and I are talking right now on two different continents. The internet is wonderful. There's Skype, and we did a few episodes via Skype, and Pascual is our audio genius, having worked in the industry for many years. So he found ways to patch everything together. And lately we've been using a service called Zencastr, which allows you right on from an online hub to track in 2 or 3 different people and then even do a little bit of post-production mixing online, which allows me to grab what I need afterwards fairly easily and turn it into a podcast.
You're learning a lot.
I am, by necessity, yeah.
And, of course, the happy news is that you're very soon to have a little podcaster, aren't you?
Yes, well, yeah, see if I'm so happy about that in another month or so when I'm up to my ears in dirty diapers, or nappies as you call them.
Very good. We do call them nappies.
Ah, yes, see.
Well, that's wonderful news, and I'm sure podcasting will be furthest from your mind soon.
Yes, we're trying to get a fair amount of material in the can, so to speak, so that we won't have a tremendous interruption of service. But hopefully the guys will be able to pull the extra weight for a little while. And as I said, we are going bi-weekly. That was one of the factors that led to our decision to go every 2 weeks because, I'm birthing a baby, and Ben is birthing his next book, and Pascual has begun a new job, and that's the thing about podcasting is none of us are going to make $1 million on podcasting, so we have to kind of fit it into our normal life schedule.
We certainly do, and it's wonderful to hear you. Actually, over the past months, you have taken a more prominent role on the podcast. Where in the early days it was fun with Ben and Pascual, and then when you came on board as a regular, I think the show really lifted, and I really mean that. It's great to hear your voice.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I've tried not to take over, but like I said, scheduling has, especially with Pascual having many more job duties and not being available for some of the recent episodes, I've kind of had to step up and be a little bit more vocal. And it's always fun to argue with Ben. I mean, he's just a great guy to shoot the breeze with and make fun of occasionally.
Yes, we've all been there, I think.
Yes.
All right. Well, look, Celestia, again, congratulations on the upcoming baby, but really congratulations, of course, on all the wonderful work you do on Squaring the Strange. It would not be the same without you, and I'm so pleased that you're part of it. Somebody has to keep those two in line.
Well, I'm delighted you enjoy listening, Richard.
I really do. Folks, if you want to hear Squaring the Strange right from the early days, there will be a link in this week's show notes, or just Google Squaring the Strange and you can hear Pascual, Ben and Celestia. But for now, Celestia Ward all the way over there in Las Vegas, thank you very much.
Thank you, Richard, and I'll catch you later on Squaring the Strange.
Hey, fellow skeptics.
Ben Radford here.
With Celestia Ward.
Your friendly host of Squaring the Strange.
A podcast that looks at topics ranging from legends and cryptids and panics
to 80 myths, psychology, and folklore.
Breaking things down and picking things apart.
As we skeptics do.
We bring different perspectives to the table.
Celestia, for example, is a witty cartoonist.
And Ben is a brilliant writer and longtime skeptical investigator.
We don't always agree.
But we have fun trying.
And we learn new things.
Join us for new topics every week or two.
Or browse our backlog of evergreen episodes.
Available on iTunes and all your podcast feeding troughs.
Squaring the Strange.
Take care, strangers.
Let's have a random rant with Dr. Paulie.
Turtle numbers have been decreasing globally due to waste, climate change, and tourism. Unfortunately, many people in Indonesia who are dependent on money made from tourism use turtle shells in jewellery and also sell turtle eggs as a delicacy. Recently, I spoke with Hana Svobodová from SaveTurtle.net in a small Prague cafe about what she's been doing with the Indonesian people to help save turtles. Okay, so it's Dr. Paulie here, and I'm with the founder of Save Turtle, Hana Svobodová, and we're sitting in a nice little cafe in the centre of Prague. So Hana, tell us a little bit about Save Turtle and what it is that you do.
I'm trying to help Save Turtle already more than 13 years, so it's really my the thing what I wish to do and how I wish to help. And it started just when I was a little kid and I was going to first class in elementary school. I got a present from my parents, small turtle, land one. And I took care about her and I was reading a lot about it, and I saw that there is a lot of problems and that turtles are endangered. When I was 18 and I was in secondary school, I went to Mexico as a volunteer, and I saw that the conservation programs there are not so good as I wish. So I started to study university here in Prague, Charles University, and my bachelor and also master thesis was about sea turtle. So then I moved to Indonesia because Indonesia is the most important place for sea turtles. You can find 6 from 7 species here in Indonesia, but this place is still very dangerous for them because people are poaching them for meat, for eggs, and they also kill them for turtle shell and make a jewelry from it. So for me it's really important to help here in Indonesia.
Okay, so and Indonesia is pretty close to home for us, so I think that's really important for us to know what kind of damage, I guess, we're contributing to when we go there as tourists. So what is it that Save Turtle actually does in Indonesia? So I know that you go and volunteer there, but there are other activities. What is it that you guys do?
Indonesia, as I said, is a really important place for sea turtles. And on the east of Kalimantan, here is the Berau region. And this region is the 8th most important place in the earth for green turtles. And there are also horsebill turtles on the place. And what we do is that we protect 3 islands where are nesting beaches and turtles are laying eggs here. Because since Second World War, the population of green turtles declined in 91% here on the place, which is quite really sharp, and it's a lot. So because we see that still a lot of people in Indonesia, they are trying to take the eggs from the beach and they are selling it on the market openly and also on the restaurant for tourists. So we are patrolling the beach and protecting the nest in the safe place. Which is also very important that if you are coming to Indonesia as a tourist or everywhere on the earth, because it's everywhere in tropical countries, think twice before you eat turtle eggs and before you eat turtle meat, because all these species, they are protected and they are critically endangered. So I think that we don't need it.
And I guess what are the aims that you guys are trying to achieve in the long run with Save Turtle? I mean, obviously the key one is to get the turtle population back up and to save the turtles.
For me, really important is education, because I think that maybe one day we will not have the money for salary of rangers. So there is 2 things what can happen. The first one is that when we stop sending the salary to rangers, then they will go out from the island, and the island will be empty, and the poachers will come and take all eggs, and the sea turtle population will be declining very quickly. But the second option is that we do education first, and we work with local communities. So before this happens, then the people already know that sea turtles are more important in the sea than on the plate, and they will not come to the island, and they will respect sea turtles as a part of the nature habitat, and they will help them.
Yeah, all right, fantastic. And I guess us Aussies, we like to pop over to Indonesia all the time, which you're well aware of. And so I was just wondering, what's some advice that you can give to us Aussies coming over to Indonesia and when we're holidaying?
There are several things what is good to think about. First is plastic, because there is a lot of rubbish and plastic rubbish around in Indonesia. So please take care about your rubbish. Don't put it to the ocean. And if you are going to for shopping somewhere, take your bags with you, and please try just slowly to explain people, because they will for sure. They will think that you are crazy, why you don't want to have this plastic bag, which is quite nice, and you have some Coke with you, so you need plastic bag. So try to explain that there is already enough plastic in the earth, and it's better to don't use it. And the second thing is there are two types of sea turtle conservation centers. The one is good, which is like using the natural way. So here you can it's like our place. You can become a volunteer, and you can go with ranger to the nesting beach. You can use a red headlamp, which don't disturb turtles, and you can see how the turtles laying egg. And you can also accompany small hatchlings to go to the ocean, and you can help to collect rubbish on the place. But there is one more type of sea turtle conservation centers, and these centers have pools. You will see the difference for first moment, and this is not really good, because the idea is good. They think that there is small hatchlings just newly hatched, and they are so tiny, so they are not ready to go to the ocean, because they will be difficult for them to survive. So they think that it will be better if they put the turtles to the pool, and they will give them some food, and that these turtles will survive. It will be good. But the sea turtles, from the name you can see that they are from the sea, not from the pool. So better for them be naturally in the sea. The problems in this swimming pool is that the turtles cannot swim here, so the muscles are weak, and they cannot dive deep, so the lungs are not development good, and also the food is probably different from the natural one. They cannot learn how to catch food and how to look for that. And the biggest problem is instinct, because hatchlings has the instinct where to go and how to come back as an adult turtle to lay eggs only first 2 days after hatched. And if they are on the pool for 6 months, for 1 year, they will lose this instinct, and they will not be able to come back to the same beach for nesting. So they will be like lost, and they cannot be part of the migration and part of the reproduction. So the sea turtle population can decline just because of this.
Totally defeats the purpose of what they're trying to do. So, it's
Yeah, but really, many tourists do not understand.
Yeah,
I get
exactly.
around like several emails every week because tourists tell me, yeah, you are protecting turtles. We were on our holiday, and here we are sending you a picture that we also help turtles. And there is this turtle from the pool, and they are just taking picture during the day with that. So it's really a big job to explain all the time that. This is not the good way of sea turtle conservation.
Absolutely.
And it's really important where you go and which center you support by your entrance fee, because they will think that what they do is good.
So you can check out Hana's saveturtle.net website and find out more. And also you can donate to the cause, so they can help pay for the rangers and their conservation work there. Hana, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. And we'll talk soon.
Yeah, thank you.
So I don't know about you, but there are a couple of things that I learnt from Hana, and the big thing that I learnt was that it's really important to work with people when trying to change behaviour. We can see that in Indonesia that people make a livelihood from selling turtle shells and turtle eggs. And I think part of Hana's success has come from understanding this and also providing an alternative economic income for the people so that they're not dependent on these products anymore. And that has been really quite successful. I think we can do this in a number of different areas that we work in and are concerned with in skepticism. And I think it's really important to remember that if people are dependent on something economically, that they're unlikely to change their behaviour overnight unless an alternative is provided. So if you've got the time, go to saveturtle.net, have a look at what they're doing, because I think they're doing really important work that's not only impacting Indonesia, but hopefully will have an impact globally. And if you've got a couple of spare bucks, please donate to them because they're doing some really fantastic work. All right, thanks for listening to my rant. It's been Dr. Paulie, and until next time, stay skeptical.
Quackwatch, your guide to quackery, health, fraud, operated by Stephen Barrett, MD. Quackwatch is now an international network of people who are concerned about health-related frauds, myths, fads, fallacies, and misconduct. Its primary focus is on quackery-related information that is difficult or impossible to get elsewhere. Articles include quackery, how should it be defined, how it sells, 26 ways to spot it, how it harms cancer patients, and much more. www.quackwatch.org. Published at skeptics.com.au on the 4th of September 2018. An open letter to the Returned and Services League of Australia. Let the dead rest in peace. Through its clubs, the Returned Services League commemorates our servicemen and women, including some who made the ultimate sacrifice. We are concerned that those clubs are occasionally used for a form of entertainment that is disrespectful to the departed and to their relatives and friends. For many years, RSL clubs have hosted performances by so-called psychics or clairvoyants who purport to make contact with the spirit world and relay messages between audience members and deceased relatives or friends. If these performances were described as, quote, for entertainment purposes only, end quote, then there would be less objection. But they are described by psychics as actual contact with the dead, with all the intense and potentially distressing personal and emotional impact that entails. Such performances have been thoroughly investigated by experts over a long period. These performers use the time-honoured technique of, quote, cold reading, end quote, which is well known to specialist magicians known as mentalists. The psychics are not communicating with spirits, they are performing a trick, though in a context we suggest is highly disrespectful. People need to work through their grief when a loved one has passed away. It cheapens the memory of any deceased person to use their name for entertainment. It is completely out of order when the deceased person had served their country and when the performance occurs in a building dedicated to the memory of the fallen. We therefore call upon the RSL and its clubs to stop hosting this exploitative and disrespectful form of entertainment. And this is signed Australian Skeptics Inc, Vic Skeptics, Queensland Skeptics, Gold Coast Skeptics, Hobart Skeptics, and WA Skeptics. And as an aside, I myself have long been going to RSL clubs for various reasons. In fact, the think tank segment, which occurs occasionally on the Skeptic Zone, is recorded at an RSL club. And I have many times gone to see performances of these so-called psychics. For more information, you can read this letter for yourself at skeptics.com.au.
This is NASA. I see a flat Earth, but we should lie to everybody about it and say it's round. 10-4.
Maximum Fun brings you the latest podcast, an expose on the flat Earth.
I want to take advantage of humankind and make them believe a lie so that they will trust us with the government.
It's all an elaborate lie, and when you get on a plane, they purposefully fly you farther than you need to go.
It's disgusting. It needs to be stopped. And if you listen to Ono, Ross, and Carrie, we will tell you the truth behind the lies.
Just kidding.
No, we won't do that. We will just tell you the truth behind the truth, because what we do is we look at extraordinary claims.
That's right. We've gone undercover with alternative medical treatments, fringe religious groups, fringe science claims, the spiritual, paranormal. We're there to check it out and let you know what happens.
Is the Queen Mary haunted? I don't know. Find out.
We show up, we make friends, we learn what happens when you ask questions, and we tell you all about it.
And we get all that funky stuff done to us.
It's Ono, Ross, and Carrie
at MaximumFun.org.
Hi, well, this is Kevin Davies, and I am here at the ANU, and I'm here with Major General Michael Ryan and Mick Cook. Gentlemen, how are you going?
I'm good, thanks, Kev. Thanks, Kev. It's
just
Mick.
Just Mick, and Mick. Yeah. Excellent. So, Mick, can we tell a little bit about yourself?
I'm an Australian Army officer, and I'm a total nerd, love science fiction, and at the moment I'm commanding the Australian Defence College, and that really means I'm about the intellectual development of military people and preparing them for the future.
Excellent. And Mick, you?
So I'm a non-award-winning podcast host and a veteran of Afghanistan who also enjoys science fiction and debating modern conflict.
And what podcast is that?
That's the Dead Prussian podcast, and also I co-host War for Idiots, and Season 2 is coming up soon.
So the reason why we're here is because both of you gentlemen recently wrote a chapter in the new book. What is the book called?
It's called Strategy Strikes Back, How Star Wars Explains Modern Military Conflict.
And so how did the two of you get involved in this project?
Well, I got involved because someone sent an email, do you want to write a chapter? So I said yes, and I'm an easy ask for those kinds. No, I mean, this was generated by a couple of people in the United States from the Modern War Institute. They're on the front here, Matt Kavanagh in particular. And he pitched this idea, and I went, yeah, I want to participate in writing about our profession and sparking interest amongst a wider range of people, and using Star Wars as the framework was great because I'm a Star Wars nut.
And what about you, Mick?
Similar sort of story, an email out of the blue saying, do you want in? And I wrote back with, I've got a chapter ready to go, let's do it. So very, very similar sort of story.
You already had one ready to go.
Pretty much. Not according to the editor, John Amble, who edited mine. Apparently it wasn't so ready. It required a few months' worth of work, but I thought it was ready at the time.
How does Star Wars explain modern conflict?
Well, I think it explains quite a few things. It's a framework for looking at the issues that we face as professionals. Everything from strategy and strategic thinking to ethical decision-making, down to tactics and operations, and how you have different parts of an organisation, be they joint military forces or military and civilian parts or interagency, is a great framework to look at how you can help them work together more collaboratively.
Yeah, I totally agree, especially in terms of the use of the word framework. You can't watch Star Wars and understand every conflict going on right now in the modern world, but you can understand parts of certain conflicts by using Star Wars as a framework and a lens. A good example is that Luke Skywalker was a rural farm boy who was radicalised and joined an insurgency force. It's a very, very strong parallels with some of the conflict zones out there right now.
I've never quite thought of it that way, but I see your point.
That was a great point.
Tell us a little bit more about the book.
Well, it's designed for a general reader. It can well be a military officer who's deeply read in military history and a range of contemporary issues, and it can well be someone just walking down the street who has a passing interest. It's designed to be a compendium of different issues in short articles that cover a range of different themes, all through the framework of the Star Wars universe.
And what does your chapter focus on?
My focus is the Grand Army of the Republic and its descent into the forces of the Empire. But I look at the strategic issues around that, about setting strategic objectives, about the legal and the ethical use of force. And it's a salutary tale around, democracies have military forces that need to work to the civil authority, that need to work to ethical and legal political outcomes, and that they should do so in a way that's effective, efficient and ethical.
And what about you, Mick? What did you focus on?
So my chapters are not as creative as General Ryan's, because I come at it more from a standard essay approach, and I explore just war theory and particularly weapons of mass destruction and collateral damage. I focus on the Death Star's destruction of planet Alderaan because it meant I only had to watch 15 minutes of Star Wars to get all my research done. But I used just war theory and the idea of distinction, proportionality and necessity to examine whether or not that was a just decision, and then compare that to real-world examples of weapons of mass destruction, namely the destruction of the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Well, certainly a lot to cover there. How can we find the book, and how can we reach you two gentlemen?
Well, you can find it on Amazon. It's available through Amazon, and there's also a podcast that interviews many of the authors that are involved. So you can read the book, listen to the podcast, follow it on Twitter.
Okay. And how can we reach you?
Well, you can reach both of us on Twitter because we're quite... I'd like to say we're big in the Twitter sphere. I think we're just prolific rather than big. But,
Mick is way bigger than I am.
But you can find General Ryan at War in the Future, and you can find myself at Mick_.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you very much. This has been really informative.
Thanks, Ken.
Greetings, listeners. It's me, Captain Disillusion. On my YouTube channel called Captain Disillusion, I, Captain Disillusion, analyze viral videos of the strange and unbelievable. I explain how interframe video compression, 3D motion tracking, and stock VFX elements prove that Justin Bieber is not a secret reptilian alien, that those videos of ghost cars are just unintentional optical illusions, and that lightning did not strike a few feet away from a girl on a beach as we saw on the news. I'm real fun at parties. My best friend is a lens flare.
Eat a dimmer switch, Disillusion.
I do know other people. Sometimes they even show up in my videos. People like Skepticism's grandpa, James Randi, Cirque du Soleil acrobat Erica Lins, weight loss enthusiast Penn Jillette, and the actual Beekman from Beekman's World. I hope you'll check out my adventures, interact with me in a platonic way, and even consider becoming a patron of my work. You can do all that and more on YouTube or at CaptainDisillusion.com.
And joining me now, all the way from Monash University in Melbourne, it's Lee Murray. Hello, Lee.
Hi, Richard. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. Nice to catch up with you. I'm so intrigued, and I'm sure our listeners will be so intrigued about what you do. Now, you'll be speaking at the Skepticon, the convention here in Sydney, next month. We'll get to that soon. But let's have a little chat about what you do. And I suppose chat is the operative word because you study linguistics.
I do. I'm a sociolinguist.
A sociolinguist?
Up here at Monash.
Yeah.
Sociolinguists in general, we're interested in the interface between language and society. And that's a really, really broad church, and there are lots of different specialties within it. So there are some of us who look at whether or not there might be some kind of change in language going on over time. So if we look at people who are older and then we compare them to people who are younger, we might get some kind of idea of whether language has changed over time. Or some of us might look at multilingualism. What happens when people with different languages and different cultures coexist in the same place?
Well, what an interesting thing, because Australia would be just the ideal test tube for this, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. We are a massively multicultural and multilingual society, particularly down here in Melbourne.
And not to mention the years that have gone by. And I mean, if I think about my own experiences, phrases and the way people spoke when I was a little boy, I don't know if the word dying out is appropriate. There's certainly it's been changing over the years.
Yes, and you will often find people complaining about that change. And what we do know is that language has been changing ever since we started communicating with each other. And probably for about that long, people have been complaining about it.
Oh, well, you can see this when people yell at the TV at the newsreaders for pronouncing things incorrectly, or to their ears pronouncing things incorrectly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've got letters that people have written 100, 200 years ago complaining about how the young people keep talking the wrong way.
Seriously, that's funny. That's funny.
Yeah, so for a while there was a huge thing with the youth saying you instead of thou, and how that was going to destroy English.
Oh, well, that's the reason. We've discovered the reason why English has been going downhill all these years.
Exactly. But one of the things we do know is that younger people are the ones who are driving language change in general. And it's usually young women, actually.
Really?
So there'll be something that young women do with their language, and everybody will pile on it, and everybody will make fun of it, and everybody will tell them it makes them sound stupid. And then, sure enough, a few years later, everybody's doing it.
Have you looked into the like phenomenon? In other words, some young people, in my experience, will drop the word like once or twice in a sentence, every sentence, where it's just astounding how many times they can fit the word like into their sentence structure.
Yes, and one of the reasons they do that so much is that there are actually multiple uses of the word like going on. So sometimes we do it when there's a pause. So we're saying, I'm not done talking yet, just give me a second. Sometimes it's when we're about to quote someone or when we're about to mimic someone. So you'll often hear the construction, and then he was like, what are you doing? And we call that a quotative.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that just means what you're introducing what someone has said, you're about to report what somebody has said, you're about to mimic them even. And that gets mixed up, I think, in people's minds with people using like as a filler.
That's interesting because you're absolutely right. And when people do use it in that fashion, as the example you quoted, and he was like, what are you doing here? To my ear, at least, it still sounds a bit strange, but I don't have any problem understanding what they're trying to tell me.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is the function of language, I guess.
Yeah. So there's a lot of people complaining about how something's incorrect and how it makes communication unclear. But in general, the linguist's position is, did your hearer understand you? If so, then it was perfectly fine.
You make a very good point. And far be it from us to halt the evolution of language. It just runs off all by itself, and all sorts of phrases and words and ways of saying things come up. Exactly. The things that we think are perfectly unremarkable now were once considered horrific. And it reminds me of words like awful, for example, which had a different meaning originally, full of awe, and now it's terrible.
Yes, they do. They meanings shift over time, meanings switch with each other over time. They get more and more specific over time. Yeah, absolutely.
What a fascinating area of research. Truly, it's deeply interesting, and I think it would interest anybody. And the good news is, as I alluded to at the top of the interview, you'll be heading Sydney way to speak at our national convention. Are these some of the broad subjects you'll be telling us about?
Oh, well, I'm going to be a little bit more specific in my talk up there. One of the areas that I'm particularly interested in, because I specialise in Australian English, and I'm interested in the kinds of decisions that we make about people based on how they talk.
Really? We can't stop thinking of Henry Higgins, can we?
Yes. Yes. Yes, one of the words that comes up a lot in my research is bogan.
Well, that's relatively new, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. We're still trying to figure out exactly what the word bogan means. It's one of those words that Australians use all the time, but often aren't quite aware of what they mean when they say it. We don't really have a good definition yet. It seems to have something to do with social class, primarily, before anything else. But what I'm going to be focusing on in my talk is looking at these kinds of decisions that people make and how perhaps they're not quite as rational as we like to think they are.
Oh, you shock me.
But I'm going to be showing some data from my own research where I've actually gone out and tried to learn these things about how people make these judgments and what sorts of things they decide.
Wow, that's whetted my appetite, and I'm sure that's whetted the appetite of the listeners who are even now heading to the convention websites to buy a ticket after listening to this interesting teaser about what you'll be speaking about. Lee Murray, I can't wait to meet you in person, and I'll certainly be in the audience paying attention to your talk, because this is an area that has always interested me, and especially over the last 10 years of being a podcaster and dealing a lot with languages. It's a particular interest. So there's the clue, folks. Another reason to get your convention tickets. But for now, Lee Murray from Monash University, thank you very much.
Thank you, Richard.
Hi, this is Heidi Robertson from the Northern Rivers Vaccination Supporters. We are a group of concerned citizens dedicated to promoting good science and common sense in our region, the far north coast of New South Wales. This area, famous for its natural beauty and relaxed lifestyle, also has the lowest rates of vaccination in Australia. We are out to change that by challenging the myths and misinformation and by providing good evidence-based information to the community. We'd love for you, no matter where you are in the world, to join our fight. Please visit our webpage at www.nrvs.info. We also have a link there to our Facebook page. Tweet us at NRVaxSupporters, that's VAX, and check us out on Wikipedia by searching for Northern Rivers Vaccination Supporters. Thank you.
It's a Friday in Sydney, and we are actually seated on... What is this thing? We're sitting on a wall, a fence?
The sandstone balustrade outside Town Hall.
Yeah,
Sydney
Town Hall. Here we are. And where in years past we could watch the cars whiz by, we're actually watching the very slow construction of the city's new light rail.
Yes, indeed. Hopefully it'll be good when it's all finished and operating in a couple of years.
1 year. We don't know. Now, Ian, it's Ian Bryce, the challenge coordinator and a long-time investigator for Australian Skeptics. Long-time listeners to the show certainly know Ian's voice over the years. We've discussed all sorts of things from nuclear physics to the Higgs boson lately. And I was just asking you before, because we've just come from the Australian Museum where you and I have been performing our Mystery Investigator show. And I was just asking you before, what happened to the Higgs boson, Ian? I mean, it was huge news, and then suddenly it sort of fell off the front page a little bit.
Well, of course, all discoveries are overtaken by something else. Yes, they discovered the Higgs boson in the Large Hadron Collider, which was announced in 2012. And after that, they closed down the Large Hadron Collider to upgrade it, so it'll have double the power. So they'll be able to find more Higgs bosons and more particles. So that's operating again, I believe, and we should hear about some more particles soon, some heavier particles than the Higgs, and more details about the Higgs.
When you say they've doubled the power, how does that work exactly?
Yes, they accelerate. They talk about the energy of the particles. Currently it can collide two protons with an energy of 7 GeV, giga electron volts, and they're upgrading it so they'll have a total energy of 14 GeV, which will be even more powerful.
I suppose it's your dream would be to visit this collider.
Oh, I have done.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. If I knew, I forgot. That's wonderful.
Its predecessor, anyway, an earlier device in the same tunnel, as it turned out, in the 1980s. Yes.
So there was something there that long ago.
Yes, indeed. It's been around since maybe the 1950s, and when they repurpose parts of it, like when they upgrade it, they keep parts of the old one and they reuse the tunnels, because tunnelling is very expensive. So it's the second or third accelerator which has been in that 27-kilometre tunnel.
And just as we were speaking, a man on a skateboard skated up, took our photograph, gave me the thumbs up, and he's just skated away again. So we might appear on some obscure blog, Ian, I don't know.
Yes, these little mysteries, one can't be sure. Maybe he's gone to a parallel universe.
Yes, maybe he has.
Anyway, something else that's probably not known, the Large Hadron Collider, what that refers to is it collides hadrons, which is not only protons but atomic nuclei, bare nuclei. For example, lead nuclei. It's designed to collide two lead nuclei together, and a lead nucleus has many protons and neutrons in it, so when you collide two of those, they all get very hot. The energy goes into all of them. They bounce around off one another, representing what's sometimes called a quark-gluon soup or quark-gluon plasma, which represents the condition of the universe something like 10 to the minus 32 seconds after the Big Bang. So there's more physics comes out of it, out of those different experiments.
And you would be the sort of person in the know. The news of the Higgs boson was, 4 years ago, am I guessing? 5 years ago?
2012.
2012? That long ago. And what is...
I wrote a musical about it.
You certainly did. Yes, and I videoed that.
You did
on
indeed,
YouTube.
yes.
In fact, folks, I'll link in the show notes to Ian's song about the Higgs boson.
I appeared to the world in July 2012 and made headlines in every newspaper.
That's the one.
And you can hear the rest of it on YouTube. Just look up Ode to the Higgs boson.
Yes, or check the links in this week's show notes. So since 2012, what has that brought us? What new understanding into the universe?
Well, they've collided, as I said, the lead nuclei to learn more about the conditions in the early Big Bang. And now it's upgraded. They're searching for heavier particles, I understand it. I haven't heard the latest news, but the Higgs is unlikely to be there on its own. It's going to have some brothers and sisters which are around the same mass in the hundreds of mega electron volts.
And what does this mean in everyday life? I mean, is it more interesting scientific discoveries? I guess we don't know, because these things tend to lead like a snowball effect, and you never know what's going to come about.
Well, they've always got some purpose. It's not often you get to do a scientific experiment on spec, saying we don't know what it'll tell us, because if it costs $100 trillion, no one's going to pay that on spec.
Yeah.
So one thing, the Higgs field verifies that aspect of the standard model of particle physics, that the Higgs particle verifies that there's a Higgs field, and the Higgs field plays a role in the early universe. In fact, tonight I'm speaking on Stephen Hawking's physics, and some of his work was to do with the inflation process in the universe, and it was driven by a scalar field, in theory, which could be the Higgs field, or could be a variation of it, or could be something else. So that it's that field which created the inflation period, they believe, where everything was expanding so rapidly that the whole thing lasted about 10 to the minus 32 seconds. Anyway, Stephen Hawking's last paper was on, it's called A Smooth Exit from Eternal Inflation. And that's governed by a field which could well be the Higgs field or related, so therefore the new experiments in Large Hadron Collider could tell us about whether that theory is true or not.
And one of the things that, I don't know if it's happened yet, but I'm sure it will happen, it happened with the word quantum. It seems that half the woo we come across these days, they'll say, this is quantum, or this works by quantum energy, or this pill has quantum entanglement inside. But I haven't heard them talking about this pill or this device is Higgs. I think they still have to use the word quantum. But as I understand it, and I don't understand quantum, that this is just using a word out of science, isn't it?
Yes, it has a very specific meaning in science. One thing we laugh about is the fact when someone says this represents a quantum leap in human rights, what they mean is a large leap. Actually, a quantum leap is the smallest possible leap you can get. The other word that they throw around is holographic, the holographic universe.
Yeah.
That's a legitimate field of scientific study, but it's been hijacked by the woo masters who talk about the holographic universe as explaining human consciousness and its synergy with the rest of the universe. And it basically says all things are interconnectable and interconnected.
Yeah. I mean, we get this all the time, and especially words like vibrate. Hello, what was that? Oh, there's buses stuck over there. 2 buses. Vibration is a word frequently used in these mind-body-wallet festivals. Energy is the most misused word, I think. This has energy embedded in it, and the energy of the energy. I mean, as a scientist, a physicist, an engineer, that must drive you crazy.
Yes, I've many times asked people, such as at the Mind Body Spirit Festival, that you're selling this device which has got energies in it. Well, energy is what your electricity measures. Exactly. That's what it's for. It's to measure electrical energy. And they don't know what I'm talking about.
No, they don't. No, they have this understanding of the word energy, which is just fictitious, made up, but it makes sense to them.
That's right, vibration and frequencies. Remember the wine card? We did Skeptics in the Pub test of the wine card, which had hidden frequency vibrations in it.
Well, if you drink enough wine, then you're seeing all sorts of vibrations as frequencies.
Yes.
Anyway, Ian, great to catch up with you. Thanks for being in the Mystery Investigator show today at the Australian Museum. That was a lot of fun, as ever. And
pleasure, Richard.
And we look forward to more interesting news on the Higgs boson field accelerator slammer.
That's another song too.
Thanks, Ian.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone. Now, a message really aimed at those folks listening to us in the United States of America. At the moment, the Australian dollar is going down the gurgler. I think at the moment it's about 71 cents compared to the US dollar. Not good if you're an Australian buying things from the United States. Great if you're an American coming here for a holiday. Your dollar goes a lot further. And as far as the Skeptic Zone is concerned, it means that those people who contribute from the United States using US dollars, your contribution goes further. Hey Siri, what's 10 US dollars in Australian dollars?
10 US dollars is $14.07.
So there you go. If you contribute $10 US, it turns into $14.07 here in Australia. If you'd like to chip in at the moment, those people listening in the United States, we get a bigger bang for your buck. Now, don't forget, on the 12th of October here in Sydney at the Occidental Hotel, that's a Friday evening, we have a huge welcome event for our guests coming to the Australian Skeptics Convention, Skepticon. This is open to everybody, of course. We're going to have lots of fun and a big trivia night too to look forward to, with some prizes to give away. If you love trivia, all we ask is you just register so we know the numbers. It's a free night. And you can do that by following the links on this week's show notes or visiting skeptics.com.au and following the links there. Of course, while you're on that page registering for the trivia night, you can buy your tickets for the Skepticon. Coming up on next week's show, we're going to be looking into foot detox machines. Detox your foot. Well, the claim is it detoxes your whole body through your feet. Some highlights from the last Skeptics in the Pub with Maynard. The story about the blood donation I was discussing at the top of the show. And we catch up with Claire Klingenberg from the Czech Republic, who was recently in Scotland and Germany where she helped test some paranormal powers. That should be interesting. So until then, this is Richard Saunders signing off from Sydney, Australia.
You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Please visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for show notes, contacts, and to access the back catalogue of episodes going back to 2008. You can follow the Skeptic Zone podcast on Twitter at Skeptic Zone, visit our Facebook page, or leave a review on iTunes. You can also support the Skeptic Zone via Patreon or PayPal. The Skeptic Zone podcast is an independent production. The views and opinions expressed on the Skeptic Zone are not necessarily those of Australian Skeptics or any other skeptical organisation.
I've come downstairs and it's not time for me to have something to eat. It's time for these two. Who wants some breakfast, huh?